Mars Attar and the Attar family. In honor of our dedicated community of volunteers and supporters, in service to the awakening of our essential humanity through education, indigenous wisdom, land stewardship, and care for future generations. Together with our partners, we direct our gifts, resources, and actions toward a more conscious, compassionate, and responsible world.
Hello, I'm John Cleese, and I've got a question for you. What do you believe about ecstasy? Not the drug, of course, but ecstasy as in the ecstatic state, that phenomenon found in so many religious and spiritual traditions. Well, in this program, we will explore the ecstatic state through the inner world of the Sufis and the whirling dervishes of Turkey and of the Orisha priestesses of Africa and Brazil. So, settle back, take a deep breath, as we join our host, Phil Cousineau, on this memorable, highly charged episode of Global Spirit, the first internal travel series.
Ecstasy. It comes in many colors and wears many faces. Around the world, it goes by many names: spirit possession, spiritual trance, soul journey, nirvana, ashk. The word ecstasy has interesting origins. It comes from the Old Greek word ekstasis, which literally means to stand beside oneself. In many cultures around the world, this often life-changing experience has a spiritual dimension. Today, we will explore the mysteries of the ecstatic experience, where the seeker, God, and creation all become one. We've invited two guests from two very different cultural backgrounds. Andrew Harvey is an internationally acclaimed author and scholar who lectures on mystical and spiritual traditions around the world. Raised in India, Andrew is the author of many books on faith, mysticism, as well as several books on the Persian mystical poet Jalaluddin Rumi. Sobonfu Somé is from the Dagara tribe in what is now Bokina Faso in Central Africa. Sobonfu is a healer, a shaman, and a teacher, and is widely regarded as one of the most powerful and beloved teachers of ritual and ceremony in our time. Sobonfu, how do we even begin to talk about ecstasy?
For me, it really is not something you can put in a direct word, because it's something so far beyond what your mind can really grasp. But I remember being, at this ritual, and all of a sudden being taken over by something, and someone screaming, "Oh, she's got tapped." But at the moment, I had no idea what they're talking about. It was when everything has been over that people came and said, "Oh my God, welcome back." And I was like, "What happened?" And they were like, "You were taken over by spirit." And I was flying, and I couldn't really know what was going on. I didn't even feel any sense of exhaustion or that, I was the one who was in charge. My little ego, kind of got beaten because I want to be in charge.
Andrew, what about yourself? How do you approach this? Can we possibly put into words what is often beyond words in the ecstatic trance?
Well, I think the definition, standing beside yourself, is very helpful, because what that means is that you're standing beside your small self, your narrow self, your biographical self, and what you're standing in is your big self, that self that is the divine self, the universal self, that's connected to the entire universe in miraculous ways. I think that's a very helpful approach.
Can we talk about it without having experienced it?
I think everybody actually has experienced it in one way or another, just as I think everybody has experienced the divine. I think people experience it in dreams, people experience it making love, people experience it dancing, people experience it looking into the eyes of children. And I think everyone is hungry for it at the most primordial level.
We want to show you a clip from a film called Dances with Ecstasy, a series of images and pieces of music that are illustrative of a few of the ways in which people move into trance through music, dance, and rhythm.
Music, dance, rhythm, ritual gets us beyond little local consciousness. Rhythm sets up another rhythm in the brain. It sets up another rhythm in the body. Change the music, you change the mind. Change the music, change the rhythm. And already consciousness then goes into another stratum, another level, another possibility.
We serve Orisha through a sort of rhythm. So we have different rhythm for different Orisha.
Dance and drumming are the means to elevate your prayers, so that the prayers will then enter every cell of their body. The spirit is awakened in the initiate and is mounted by a force called the Orisha. These spirits take over the body and communicate and speak through the initiate.
ما تتعقليش يبان لك تيجي داك الشيء تيخلط لك عقلك وما تتعقليش تضحك. وكون ملك بالفوطه ديالو. دابا نقول بحال بديت بحال النادي كندور الفوطه ديالي. إلا جاو الجنود يطيحوا يجدوا.
Sobonfu, that must feel like going home again to see that
yes.
footage. What is happening there? There seems to be something that's being released. One of the characters even said that these kind of dances are about awakening the spirit. What is in us then that is dormant that needs to be awoken?
Well, I mean, just even watching it, one of the things that I found is that it started to make me work out all those little blockages in my body, you know, just shaking off those things that are not really needed for me to hold on, that I might be holding on to unconsciously or consciously sometime. And so you don't want to be getting, you know, to the ecstasy with all this dirt on you. And that part of what you're shaking off, that part of what you're releasing, and you taking those layers of things that prevent you from, you know, communing with the divine, from being in that ecstatic mode.
So reaching the divine, having an ecstatic experience isn't just mental, right? It's mind, body, soul.
Absolutely. Mind, body, soul, spirit, and it's a whole connection. And it is also a way of bringing about balance within the environment, and that's why it is contagious. That when you see it, you cannot just sit back and say, "Oh yes, that was just a nice experience." It pulls you into it, and then you are a part of it. So that is where the beauty comes in, so that whatever transformation is happening, whatever healing is happening, is not just at a personal level, but it breaks through and gets to the communal level. And that is also part of the reason why this ecstatic dances goes beyond cultural, racial, and ethnic kind of barriers. You just cut through all of that and open this new doorway where everybody can really feel there's a unity.
Where everybody experiences.
So ecstasy really does healing on two major levels. It heals the individual because it enables the individual to get back to this bliss fire that is at the origin of everything. And it heals the community because when people dance together, they experience their secret unity in this unity.
Yeah. Absolutely, because the individual who might be the one who starts, the dance to open the doorway. It's what we call being the barometer of a voice within the community, where you get a call by spirit. Okay, you really need to lead everyone to this place, and so you start, and then soon everyone start to feel it. My arm is moving, and it touches your arm, and it start to move,
and this
then
energy,
exactly.
This one energy starts to possess everyone, and everybody enters into that one energy.
Yes.
And they experience that, and that is healing.
Yes,
on
absolutely.
a very deep level.
Absolutely.
Both for the person and for the community.
Exactly. Yes, because it's no longer about, I am doing your healing and you hold on to yours. When I'm feeling you do yours. It's everyone. And when that energy is magnified, there is such a support and there is a witnessing that is happening at the human level and at the spirit level. And there is this huge, nectar of healing that is created as a result. Yes.
Sobonfu, coming from your tradition, is it important to make a distinction between ecstasy and spirit possession?
The spirit possession can come even when you're not looking for it, but and that is what spirit has chosen you to go through at that moment. So you can just be the chosen one by spirit at the time. And in other forms of ecstasy, it can be something that someone is yearning for, something that you're craving to reach, because that ecstasy within you has been stamped out by everyday's friction and problems and stress. And so you really start to yearn for that connection, for that ecstatic, with the divine and so forth.
Does it help to know that there are many paths to Rome, different paths to an experience of God or the divine?
Well, I think it's absolutely essential, because one of the tragic things of our time is this ghastly fundamentalism that's afflicting Christianity and Islam and Judaism and unfortunately even Hinduism and Buddhism. And fundamentalism basically claims that there's only one way to God, whereas of course God can be reached through so many different kinds of experience. And there are so many different kinds of ecstatic experience. And we've had dance, but tantric ecstasy, the ecstasy of consecrated sexuality is a supreme door in, deep listening to music, feasting with your friends can produce a great deal of ecstasy. I think we really need a kind of science of ecstasy to help us reconnect with this original fire bliss force that is the source of all healing and that is the source of all true joy.
I feel like I'm part of the actual atmosphere. Like it's not me dancing, it's me with everybody else dancing. You just look around and you can tell that everybody else is in the same place that you are.
Feels like we were in a cage and someone let us free.
You've got absolutely amazing frequencies coming out of those speaker boxes. Once you start dancing for a while, you just start to resonate with those frequencies, like they go right through your whole cellular structure, so that your whole body system starts to vibrate. When you're dancing en masse with a number of other people, you start to all vibrate within that frequency.
Yeah, drugs is part of it for me, but only in the sense of I have as much as I need, not as much as I can.
Traditionally, the shaman years and years ago worked through channeling spirits and operating that for healing and for bringing in messages for the tribe. The spirits we work with are electricity, light, and human energy. And we're also intermingling this with the sort of trance dance energy everyone is in.
As the clapping of the woman's hands and the incredible trance generates this very, very intense energy and vibration. And the dance is a very repetitive one, and eventually what will happen is the Num energy, this energy that rests at the base of the spine, travels up the spine until it bursts out of the crown of the head. A so-called ecstatic or samadhi experience occurs, which is a universal phenomenon. The Buddhists, they call it nirvana. The Bushmen call it Kia. It's really very similar to the yogi Kundalini experience. They're renowned as very, very powerful healers. They are channeling universal healing energy.
Energy all together and looping it higher and looping it higher and looping it higher through repetition, through dance, through becoming sensitive to energy within ourselves. We begin to have an opening, a gateway to our higher self.
How do you feel when you watch that form of spiritual yearning? Is it equivalent? Should there be distinctions made? What do you see there?
Well, I think, it all really leads to this same thing. The core of it is this yearning to merge with the divine. And so when you are really doing techno dance, you are doing the spiritual dance, be it from the Sufi tradition or being from, the bush people, there is something within us that is yearning to be alive and to be in that divine balm of energy where we can feel that, we are. At one point, the mind goes away.
Right.
And, something else emerges. The soul and the spirit start to rise. And you can really see them come alive. And that's what we're really yearning, to be able to come alive in such a powerful way that we are not standing in our own way.
That's it.
It would seem then that everybody would want a taste of this experience, this other dimension of life. And yet it's still terrifying to many people who I believe think they might have to endure it, experience it alone. So I was moved by the imagery in Africa there with the trance dancers, that they each had people on either side of them to bolster them, to help them, to literally ground them in some way. Could that be missing in the way that some young people are reaching for ecstasy today and get, in a sense, electrocuted spiritually or psychologically by it?
Well, I think so, but I think it's also true that there are a great many festivals and gather, like Burning Man, for example, in the middle of the desert outside Las Vegas. People come together precisely because they know that experiencing ecstasy together raises the ecstasy and also protects people as they go through the experience. I think that's crucial.
Yeah, and I'll also say that, you know, in addition to the community support, what is your spiritual support?
Right.
You know, which spirit are you connected to?
Right.
And how can you really call on to them to really help you, you know, be centered in this experience so that it is truly a sacred moment and not just a, you know, personal, crazy, momentary insanity.
Well, I think this is very important because I think there are two fundamental objections from the religions to ecstasy and to all forms of control, in fact. One is an illegitimate one, which really is that ecstasy takes people into the divine directly, so the religions can't control them, and that's an illegitimate objection. But the legitimate objection is that ecstasy can, when it's not protected and when you're not properly prepared and when you're not purified as far as you can be, can actually lead to opening to the dark forces, to demonic possession, to deeply disturbing and shattering experiences. And I think that's a legitimate objection. It shouldn't stop you pursuing ecstasy, but it should serve, I think, as a warning of how careful and how profoundly prepared you need to be if the ecstatic experience is going to flower into the divine and not into the demonic.
Right, and that may be where we need to learn to say, I need help.
Right.
You know, and ask for help and not be ashamed of it because we have, you know, labeled needing help or the whole world needing even as something negative. So if I need help, you know, and I say, Andrew, I really need help because I am going into this place and I need someone who can watch me and make sure that I am not going into territory where I should not be going. And for you to say, yes, I can be there. And that is healthy, you know, to ask. There's nothing to be ashamed about.
Otherwise, anything can happen.
Yes, exactly.
What do you see happening here, especially with the use of drugs? One of the young fellows says, I only take what I need. I don't take what I can get. Do you have to use the drugs to get there?
Well, I think, you know, one of the things that if you study the mystical traditions, nearly all of them have the use of a certain drugs in sacred circumstances. But all of them say the same thing, which is fundamentally, these drugs can be very, very useful, but you must use them in a sacred way and in a sacred context and with a sacred intention. Used in that way, amazing things can happen and amazing revelations can be given. But if you use these very powerful stimulants in a selfish way or a self-absorbed way or a way that isn't consciously consecrated, all kinds of other influences can come in, and these can be very dangerous, and they don't necessarily lead to a healing ecstasy. They can lead to a degrading ecstasy or a very bad trip or an eruption of dark forces. So I think you have to be very careful.
Yeah, but I also think that when you have been deprived of spirit and you have only been made to relate to God through someone else, or when you have been told that there isn't the divine within you, then it launches you out on the search of a divine that is outside, so that the drug then become the key that will open that door for you to reach the divine, except it will do so in a limited manner.
That's it. That's true. And I think I know many, of course, in myself, one of the things that really opened me was a LSD trip I took when I was 21. And suddenly I understood that all these phenomena that I'd been reading about were real because I was seeing them and experiencing them. But had I stayed addicted to that drug, I think it would have ruined the very faculties that it was awakening.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very important to bring in, to say, yes, of course it can open, but then to give the warning that there is something beyond the drug that needs to be connected with in a more sober way or in a more healthy and sacred way.
Yeah.
I'm reminded, too, of some work I've done with the Native Americans over the years who are still quite distraught about the introduction of alcohol onto the reservations in the 19th century. And yet one medicine man told me that he thought that it was interesting that the Anglo culture, the European American culture, used the word spirits to describe alcohol, and that skull and crossbones are actually put into the bottom of alcohol bottles. And what that meant to them was that even downtrodden people, people on the edge of the abyss, are yearning for the Spirit. There is a spiritual hunger everywhere you look.
Well, especially downtrodden people. I think that it's the downtrodden people of the earth who really show us the way to ecstasy most intensely. I never experience ecstasy so deeply as when I'm with a group of poor Indians in a temple who are really pouring out their adoration and devotion to the divine, and they're pouring it out in such an intense way because they really need to feel it to be able to get through the very difficult circumstances of their lives. They have everything to teach me about how to open to God. I find their devotion not only moving, but profoundly challenging and inspirational.
Now, that's rhapsodic, but just on the other side of that knife's edge is fear.
Oh,
the
of course.
fear of being out of control, losing control of oneself, but also the fear that the community might have if they see us out of control in a ritual or ceremony. Could you address that, Sobonfu?
I really think that the fear is definitely a critical element here, because a lot of us, would like to explore a lot of things in our life, but we are afraid, what my wife going to think, what my husband going to think, and what my neighbors are going to think about me. And so I have to be cool and keep everything to myself, which then not only create narcissism, but it creates also disruptive behavior. Right. Which can then make you inflict pain onto others and
yes,
so
because
forth.
if you repress the ecstasy that you're secretly hungering for, then that goes into depression, that goes into weird behaviors, that goes into perversion, that goes into violence.
Exactly.
The expression of ecstasy is at the core of all authentic societies, because they all know that that is what heals, that is what elevates, that is what unifies, that is what inspires. And if you don't give people permission to lose control in that holy way, they'll find it in other very dark ways.
Absolutely. And it's what my grandmother used to say. If something is not meant to be there, there wouldn't be a word to express it, That's right. And so we have ecstasy. It is a divine gift. So,
absolutely.
Why not take it? And for me, it's a bargain. Just give me a faint opportunity and I'll be diving for it, because it's a way of liberating myself from the little realities that I create for myself, and to be able to reach something bigger. And that is what we are all yearning for. When we're yearning for something, sometimes we don't even have a word for it. You only taste it, or you smell it, or it's a faint echo that you hear, but we're all yearning for something bigger, and it's that ecstatic moment with the divine that we really yearning for, but we resist it, and we fight it, and we have, all kind of things, fears,
well,
and
I think we fight
judgment.
Don't you think we fight it because actually, although we say we want bliss, although we say we want love, although we say we want unity with the Godhead, actually the experience changes everything. And we don't want to give up our tidy little agendas. We don't give up our depression. We don't want to give up this narrow little strip of grey in which we live our lives. We want, the ego wants to be in control, even if it is of a very depressed being.
Yeah, but also because those things have become our identity.
Yes.
And here is an alternate option, and we do not want to take that. And
we have nothing in this culture that allows us to think of our identity as having an ecstatic component.
That's right.
Because our identity has to be cool, has to be functional, has to be efficient, has to fit into the great death machine that our culture has become.
And because also when we experience that ecstatic, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
Right. And what will happen to me, I might actually become very happy and uncontrollably joyful and annoy everybody.
Exactly. So I must repress it so I can confine with the crowd.
Right.
So welcome to misery.
Yes. I remember meeting Lawrence Durrell once, the great English writer, and he was so pleased that I was living in America, and he said, I'm so happy you're living in America because Americans accept ecstasy and the English are programmed for misery, and they won't let you be joyful. If you show any signs of joy, they'll do everything possible to extinguish it. So thank God you're here.
Andrew, one of your many gifts is to give us the gift of Rumi, who is often described as the best-selling poet or one of the best-selling poets of our time, though he hasn't published in about 800 years.
He's described as the greatest mystical poet the world has ever seen.
That's right, the Shakespeare of the East, and so on. So when you went to Turkey recently, what were you looking for?
I was looking to be united with the spirit of the being I have loved most in my life, Jalaluddin Rumi. I met Rumi when I was 25, not literally, but I met his poetry, and the two lines that absolutely changed my life were, "Give me ecstasy and give me naked wonder, O my beloved. Let all these wrangling desires die, and the eternal lover be born in me." And although I had not the slightest idea of what they meant, I knew that the person who could write that knew, and that I wanted to know. And that began a very profound love affair with Rumi. So I went back to Turkey to be with him and to taste that ishq, that passionate ecstasy that had illumined his whole life and that illumines his whole poetry. We're traveling across central Anatolia towards the ancient town of Konya, the historic center of the Turkish Mevlevi Sufi tradition. The Mevlevis are considered one of the ecstatic schools of Sufism, the Sufis whose practices of whirling and chanting lead them into a state of ishq, or divine ecstasy, something I've been fascinated by for decades. With an auspicious Sufi-like coincidence, a fellow pilgrim on the same bus, it turns out, is a direct descendant of Jalaluddin Rumi, or as he is known here in Turkey, Mevlana, the founder of the Mevlevi tradition in the 13th century. I couldn't think of a better person to explain Rumi's concept of ishq, or divine ecstasy. What is ishq for you? When we talk about ishq and this divine passion, what does it mean to you?
It has every time different meanings for me. For example, right now when I close my eyes and open again, I can say awareness, self-awareness about what I am, who I am, why I am here.
All very good questions indeed. Questions, of course, which remind me of why I am here. The truth is that Emin and I are here today for the same reason. We are two pilgrims among thousands who have come here to be at the actual tomb of Jalaluddin Rumi on the 732nd anniversary of his Sheb el Arus, or as the Sufis say, his wedding night, when Rumi gave up his earthly body to unite with the beloved, the Creator. Tens of thousands of pilgrims are here with us today, men and women from all over the world.
Tekim, bugün 17 Aralık, Hazreti Mevlana'nın öldüğü gün. Mevlana Türbesi'nde birçok kişiyi göreceksiniz. Bunlar çeşitli milletlerden gelen, çeşitli ırklardan olan insanlar ve çeşitli dinlerden olan insanlar. Buraya gelen insan Hristiyan olmuş, Budist olmuş, Müslüman olmuş, hiçbir şey fark etmiyor. Hepsi bir aradalar. Bu 800 senedir de böyle devam ediyor ve 365 gün bu türbe açık, hiçbir zaman kapanmadı. Hazreti Mevlana'nın 22. torunuyum. Burada esas olan insanın kalbine bakmak.
The Sema is the mystical turning prayer that Mevlana taught his disciples. The dervish holds the right hand open and raised upwards to receive the divine energy and grace, and the other hand open and pointed downwards. So as he turns, the dervish is channeling that divine energy downwards to earth and outwards to the rest of creation.
Bunu kendi hayatımızda da aynı şekilde topraktan gelip toprağa dönüyoruz. Yine bir sirkülasyon var, bir dönme var. Yıldızlara baktığımız zaman yıldızların hepsi kendi etrafında dönüyorlar. Dünya kendi etrafında dönüyor. Burada biz Mevlevilere göre bir ibadet var. Bu dönüş Allah'ın varlığı için. Sema aynı bir yolculuk. Sema yapan semazen. Burada Allah sevgisini içinde hissederek, her dönüşte Allah Allah diyerek bir zikir yaparak dönmesinde sonuçta işte ne bileyim Budistlerin Nirvana'ya ulaşması gibi.
Through the teachings of Rumi and others, the Sufi message of all-embracing love has been spreading to the West, giving tens of thousands of Westerners a new access to the mystical, ecstatic aspect of Islam.
The state is probably that of non-being, which occurs in any meditation, actually. If you do a sitting meditation, like in Buddhism, you sit and you don't move, and everything disappears. And in the Sema meditation, you move and you do this repetitive movement, and again everything disappears. Sema actually means dance of the planets, celestial dance. And so we're actually just showing you that the planet that you are sitting on is turning, but you're not getting dizzy. And the planet itself is turning around the sun and you're still not dizzy. And the cells in your body are turning around themselves and still you're not dizzy. I also don't get dizzy when I do it. And I'm just showing you actually physical truths that are also figurative, spiritual truths.
Did you see some parallels with your own tradition in this ecstatic spiral dance, this yearning for an experience, not just one more theory of ecstasy?
No, absolutely. I really believe that what I was feeling, was also this journey, this pilgrimage that I was taking to the heart of Istanbul without even being there, which is different from the tourism, as you talk about. Tourism is about, let me step all over you, versus, spirit of the land, open up, take me in. Let me merge in with you, allow me to be a part of you and infuse whatever wisdom you have upon me. And that's what I was feeling watching the video, and it reminded me, of a, journey back home for me. And be a ecstatic experience that we have, be it, calling in of a new year, for instance, where we dance from sun down to sunrise, where you have no pain whatsoever, and where you really open and you're saying, spirit of this time of the ending of an old year and the opening of a new year, open, allow, swallow me. Make me a part of you so I can really be transformed. And so that's what I was feeling sitting here yes, something in me is coming alive. And that's what I like in experience. So it really is something that not only enable you to be able to get to a different realm, but it's also allowing you to take the other realm in.
Absolutely.
You know?
I think it's that you go into that realm so as to be, in a way, cellularly infused by the power of that realm, so that when you come back from the ecstasy, your entire being has been shifted,
That's right.
cleansed, purified, and elated.
Yes.
Yes.
And often people think, well, something has changed me. Yes, it's supposed
has
to change.
changed you.
If
Yes.
it's back to the old way, then there's something wrong. You
Exactly.
know, because it's supposed to be transformed by it.
Absolutely. And I think that's the point. I think what people are finding in Rumi, what people are finding in African dance, what people are finding in Hindu ritual, what people are finding in Buddhism is a way into this primordial ecstatic experience that they need so desperately, we all need so desperately, to be able to give birth to the divine human in ourselves.
Yes.
Andrew, do you see some parallels with spirit possession dance, which awakens the life force itself, and the group dance of the Sufi, the spiral dance, which isn't done alone, but it's done as a collective? There's a collective trance, there's a collective healing that goes on, and apparently a collective experience of God, the divine.
Oh, yes, I think they're very, very deeply related. I think when Sufi dervishes dance together, they are consciously reciting the name of God under their breaths. They're consciously placing themselves in the divine, and as they increasingly dance, the divine comes and possesses them. You can see this when you're really participating. And then the symbolism of the dance, of course, makes them even more conscious of this, so that they go deeper and deeper into different states of ecstasy. It's very moving.
I want to explore one other aspect that came up in that last film clip, and that's tears. Why the tears? What do you see happening there, Andrew?
Well, I think that there are two essential kinds of tears that ecstasy provokes. The first is the tears at the absolutely amazing beauty of the experience. Tears of bliss, tears of infinite gratitude, tears of release, tears of liberation. And then there are the tears of grief, the enormity of the grief that the ecstasy is releasing you from. Sometimes just as the ecstasy is about to do its greatest healing, you experience again for the last time the full intensity of the pain that it's releasing you from. And you cry one last profound time for that suffering, and then it is over.
Are we too pent up emotionally in the West to appreciate this
Oh, God,
on an
yes.
everyday level?
God, I think the West is a kind of concentration camp of reason, is what I describe it as. It's a sort of Auschwitz of reason, and everybody needs to be released from that.
That's definitely true. You know, people who go to my country, in the villages, that is, always are confused why these people who are so poor are happy. I said, because not only they have each other to share their ecstasy with, but they also share their joys and their sorrow.
Right.
So it is evenly shared. No one carries the burden of their pain by themselves. And you get here, you have people who have so much, and yet they're so depressed, as you say. This fight, you know, I will not let that tear shed no matter what.
Right.
So there is a conditioning that we have, that even when you are a child, you are conditioned not to grieve, because when you grieve as a child, you are punished.
Right.
And you are rewarded when you do not share it. And so you learn to compartmentalize your pain, and so it cuts you away from being able to dance, therefore from experiencing ecstasy, and so you get sick.
If you can't experience ecstasy, you can't experience life.
Exactly. And one man had accused me of forcing him to dance because he was sick. I said, well, you are exactly sick because you do not dance. So you cannot experience the ecstasy to heal. So therefore,
and what
get
a
out and
profound
dance.
statement about the West, that the West is so sick in so many ways because it cannot truly dance in this ecstasy. It's very scary coming back into the West when you've been immersed in the glory of Islam in Istanbul or the glory of Hinduism in Benares. There my soul is expanded, and I can laugh and cry and feel the divine presence and openly exhibit my joy to people passing by and share it in temples and go to ceremonies by the side of the river at night and just look into people's eyes and feel their ecstasy and their joy. And then coming back to the West, where 95% of people seem to be struggling under a major depression, which would be inevitable if you're living in a concentration camp of reason. Westerners need ecstasy like oxygen.
The sheikh opens the zikr, holds the zikr, and closes the zikr. And without the sheikh, there is no zikr.
Yaratan Allah'ın güzelliğini ve bize vermiş olduğu büyük nimetini ne karşı şükretmek için yapmış olduğumuz bir hatırlamadır zikir. Bütün şeriatlarda Musevilikte, İsevilikte, Muhammedilikte zikir onun için tasavvufta baş köşeyi tutmuştur temel olarak. İnsanları alıştırıp ve insanları temizlemek, yani manen temizleyerek Allah'a yaklaştırmak için kullanılan bir sistemdir zikir. Tamamen Allah'ın bize vermiş olduğu nimetlere şükretmek için yaptığımız bir hatırlamadır. Esas zikir her nefeste Allah'ı idrak etmektir. İlmel tahsil edilmez, Allah'ın bir lütfu olarak insana hediye edilir. O hediye edilmenin de başlangıcı şudur.
The Zikr fuels the divine ecstasy, the state of oneness or union with the beloved, the Creator.
And if you are able to give yourself completely, to empty yourself completely, the energy from the zikr will move you. And it creates a sense of no separation between those who are engaging in the zikr and the whirling dervishes and the musicians and the air that we're breathing and the room that we're in and the planet that we're on. And we realize there's no separation between any of us. There's unity.
Andrew, I see your journey to Turkey is not the usual tourist trip, but
I know.
A pilgrimage. Did you yourself experience the ishq, the ashq that's just been described
God,
to us?
it was, yes, absolutely. It was one of the most powerful, I think it's probably the most powerful trip of my whole life, because one occasion in particular, on December the 17th, everybody goes to the tomb and everybody starts to pray, but at about 4:15, the time when Rumi actually left his body in 1273, these young men clothed in white started to sing in the most extraordinary and ecstatic way the praises to Rumi that have been handed down in the tradition. And at that moment, everybody started to cry, and you felt the glory of this being and the glory of what he'd given and the glory of the tradition from which he'd come and the glory of the love that his extraordinary work had created. And at that moment, I think, I had an experience of the ishq, of the passion, of the ecstasy, which was greater than anything in my life. And I felt it as a absolutely direct grace from him and from the beloved.
I see one possible danger here with the exploration of the other, with the exotic, with the lands and cultures halfway around the world, and that is the tendency to be voyeuristic about it. How do we then make these deep, I believe, immemorial teachings, timeless teachings, relevant to people today without diminishing them, without trivializing them, holding on somehow to the true core?
I really think that the road to that truth is the experience. Right. You know, you cannot judge a food just by looking at it and say, well, it has some strange thing in it, so therefore it must taste horrible, so I'm not going to taste it. You know, at least allow yourself, you know, to say a prayer and say, well, I don't know what it is I'm going to taste, but I am open to experiencing this, so whatever it is, at least I would know. then you can open the doorway where you can experience the essence of what it is you are experiencing versus standing back and, you know, judging and looking at it from a limited perspective and then, you know, sanctioning, okay, I sanctioned it bad, you know. Well, what did you sanction? You know, your own narrow view of what it is. And that is part of the reason why when we watch other people in an ecstatic moment, we get afraid, or we start to go, oh my God, someone has to do something, you know, because this person is out of control and, you know, soon someone is going to get hurt. But when you join with them, then you go, oh my God, wow, there is a wind here that is lifting me. I don't know where it's taking me, but I love it, you know.
Can you give us an example? Can you give us an example from your own work, your workshops, your teachings with relationships, your teachings with prisoners? How do you help people take flight like that in a safe way?
Well, it really starts with people just knowing that everyone here is safe. You know, no one is going to bite. And I always start with the jokes that, you know, I do have long teeth, but I won't bite you, you know. Just recently doing grieving work in the prison, you know, and they're all sitting there, and you are not going to make us do this, are you? I said, oh, yes, absolutely. We are going to dive into this because we all have things that need to be cleared. You know, we all have our pain, our shame, our wounds. And it's not just on one person. And so we just have to be willing to risk. So are you with me? And they were like, we don't know, but whatever you say, we're willing to try. And I think it's that willingness to try that opened the doorway to all kind of thing, you know, because when you are not willing to try, you put up such a barrier that even the most amazing experience that you could be going through become a nightmare.
What about you, Andrew? How do you make your work relevant?
Well, I think the most powerful thing I find is to try at the very beginning of when I give a workshop or a lecture to establish a sacred atmosphere. So I always invite people to chant. I never speak until people have chanted together the name of God, until people have done some very simple exercises, which are so easy to do, because when you chant or do these sacred exercises, a field of divine presence is released, and in that field of divine presence, all the sort of tightly shut buds of one's ego start involuntarily to open to the warmth of the presence, and then amazing things start to happen naturally, because when people just open, the spirit that is longing to give everybody a taste of the ecstatic comes in, and people find themselves experiencing absolutely extraordinary things. Yeah. It's not complicated. You just have to be certain that you begin and end everything in that sacred way, and then the field of sacredness is created in which all kinds of revelations can take place quite naturally. Yeah.
No, I think you really named it there, you know, the invocation of the sacred.
Yes.
I mean, it takes away the gossiping.
Yes.
And
let the mind
the
go, let the ordinary world go, let the biography go. Invoke the sacred, and the sacred does the work for you.
That's right.
But we mustn't tell anybody this, otherwise they won't hire us. They'll just invoke the sacred on their own.
You gave it away.
I know.
Wow. I always know when I've had a great conversation if I've heard things and discussed things I haven't confronted before. So I want to thank you, Sobonfu, for opening up my heart in that way, and Andrew, thank you for opening my heart. And to you at home, I hope you've heard something equally challenging and electrifying this evening, and maybe you'll be galvanized or inspired to go out and have some conversations like this of your own. And if so, I hope you join us again next week for another episode in Global Spirit. I'm Phil Cousineau, and thank you very much for joining us.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Oh, man.
Really lovely. Thank you very much.
Hello again. I'm still John Cleese. So, were you standing beside yourself there with Andrew and Sobonfu as they fell in love right on the Global Spirit set? I was thrilled to realize that music and chanting can give us this wonderful sense that we are all connected. And I hope that in this mere television program you are discovering something new about the ecstatic state, and that it is conveyed to you an experience and not just an idea of what is being talked about. Anyway, I hope you will be joining us again soon for another episode of Global Spirit, the first internal travel series.
Mars Attar and the Attar family, in honor of our dedicated community of volunteers and supporters, in service to the awakening of our essential humanity through education, indigenous wisdom, land stewardship, and care for future generations. Together with our partners, we direct our gifts, resources, and actions toward a more conscious, compassionate, and responsible world.